Alrighty, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 vs 1 bot AI cast. We've got ourselves what's actually going to be a little bit of a special video here today. One that I'm very excited for, as I did start recording this a little bit earlier, but I decided I was going to do it in a completely different way because, we've got NegativeZero taking on Phobos. So a very good Terran bot that's rather aggressive, likes to go for pushes with, for example, it's saying Tank Banshee push, going up against the top bot. And yeah, just click that like button, leave a comment down below, subscribe if you guys haven't, and if you do want to support the channel, consider becoming a YouTube member. I'm kind of speeding through the intro for this one, as we're actually going to have a bit of a cut in the video where I'm going to read a comment from NegativeZero's bot author, which goes quite in depth as far as how NegativeZero works. So previously I tried recording it, I was observing, holding my phone, and reading the comment, but the game was actually so good that I was like, oh man, I don't want to miss these awesome moments. So I decided just to record the comment. I'll just insert it in this while doing it, hopefully a good job observing, better than I was. So yeah, I'll just insert that into here. It's just me reading a nice long comment from NegativeZero's bot author that highlights how the bot works, and it's very informative for those of you that may want to try programming your own bot. Longer reply from YouTube about how NegativeZero works. Decisions for expanding tech buildings, etc. are all made as the game goes on. I generally have no idea what the bot will do until I actually watch the match, but I can usually understand why it did what it did after. It uses a combination of weighted decision-making systems, unit movements, the army comps when it researches, what it builds, etc. is all a result of decision systems based on the current game state. So NegativeZero decides most of the important things based on what's going on in that game. When you see the unit splits, for example, that isn't hard-coded in any way, the units decide to do that. I'm not even sure where to start on doing that from a centralized control. I change behavior by changing weights. I call them scores, but I guess weight is the proper term. It can completely go Mass Phoenix in a game, and has done so on a few occasions. It is not planned, it's just making decisions as a response to the opponent. Throw in a Mass Mutabot, you'll likely get Mass Phoenix in response, and it will decide everything else to build to support that, Stargates, upgrades, etc. on its own. There isn't a Mass Phoenix strategy coded. You don't see this often in the cast because most of the top bots have robust comps, but the same systems are in place. So NegativeZero, a very reactive bot, which is really impressive. Some parts are still hard-coded in the way other bots are. Expanding, for example, is based on a good bit on specific conditions, number of workers, speed mining, etc. It's mostly a matter of what I think is the best solution for the problem. Which it seems to be pretty effective code and works very well with NegativeZero, because it is rather trigger happy, and we see that in this game, that it likes to cancel its nexus, that kind of thing, but it usually works out because it stays alive and then it gets to play the game out. It doesn't really use data, it makes decisions based on the current game state. I mostly keep data on so it doesn't play 5 games at the same time, and then none for many hours, to allow early fun builds, the first 4 to 5 minutes that work against some bots to play. Those games only last 5 to 7 minutes usually, so I guess that's a reference to the decision to the SC2 AI. .net. That's actually something I didn't know, was that I'm guessing if you don't have data, which is a setting enabled on your bot on SC2 AI.net, that I guess it'll just play all your games at once because it can. Otherwise, it'll just process them one at a time so your bot has data from the previous match. Play the exact same bot with a different name against it and you'll get the same response. So NegativeZero doesn't rely on, again, it doesn't rely on what happened in the previous game like some bots do. It relies on just what it scouts, which is very, very impressive. Data is useful, however, you're basically a game behind always. If your opponent, they constantly change strategies, then you're not ready if you're relying on last game's data, so I quit using it. It's great starting out, though. Don't let me discourage you from using it. It will get you wins, which is, yeah, very insightful. So the author goes on to say, I uploaded the mono bot version last night. You can see how it acts with counter tables that are specifically limited to 1 or 2 units by watching it. It has a mass Phoenix build, etc. The Adept one was pretty much the original NegativeZero when I first started on it because that was the only unit it made at the time. So the bot author has uploaded another bot, I believe, called Buckshot, which is NegativeZero with different compositions, more limited compositions, and we definitely will check that out in the future. But yeah, I hope this write-up was worth it and that you guys enjoyed it. That was me saying that, by the way. That I hope it was worth it, me just sitting down to specifically record it. Definitely was worth it for the author to write it. So that write-up should be done now. Yeah, you guys can see why I wanted to do a better job observing this game than like reading that while holding my phone. As we see NegativeZero move forward with a big Stalker engagement, diving on top of the tanks, kills off a couple of them. The Marines for Phobos do quite an alright job, so NegativeZero takes some losses. It hasn't successfully cleaned this up yet, but it does have only 1 tank remaining for Phobos. Looks like, is that Reaper back in the main base? Yes, it is, working on a pylon. NegativeZero has bigger fish to fry, though, as it does dive forward, trying to pick off that tank. It does get it, despite the SCV repair, and now the Stalkers will have a great time engaging these Marines, so Phobos probably wants to get those units home if it can. There is a third base going up for the Red Terran. This Reaper, it's now changed target for some reason from the forge, from the pylon to the forge. It may have actually killed the pylon, which is unfortunate. NegativeZero sends a Phoenix home to deal with that Reaper. Is it going to lift it? No, it's not. It's actually going to wait for the rest of the units to get home to handle that. Phobos double expanding behind this. This is something that Phobos seems to do in quite a few of its games. Go for a double expo, so trying to get that economy really going. We're even getting a planetary at the third base, so I love that. Just extra firepower against those strong dives that NegativeZero does. But Phobos is getting aggressive once more with only a single tank, and that is not a recipe for success, as NegativeZero handles those tanks so well. The Red Terran bot, I think, needs to go home and remuster a little bit. At the same time, that does mean it will be playing the late game against NegativeZero, which is very scary because of how good its army control is. Phobos will be trying this once more, moving forward with just a single tank. If the tank can get sieged up, it may give NegativeZero some pause. The Protoss has invested in a lot of tech, so its army isn't that big to try and handle this. The tank unsieges, though. It's got to re-siege to help zone out these Stalkers. Marines are kiting back. Medivacs being sort of forced off. We do see the tank being repaired by those SCVs. The few Stalkers that dove forward first don't get the job done. However, now the Stalkers are cleaning everything else up with their blink, and Phobos is losing a lot of units here. So very well done by NegativeZero. We do have a Stargate a second Stargate on the way for NegativeZero, an extra Robo on the way. And then, yeah, Phobos trying to go for a push again with like 1 tank. It very much is still in attack mode. We'll see if it ever pivots out of that or not. as sometimes bots just like to attack. Phoenix picks off the Raven. That's quite nice. Good blink by NegativeZero, even lifting an SCV with the Phoenix. Phobos has got to go home. It is producing just one tank at a time. I wouldn't mind seeing more than one tank at a time, but more importantly, it needs to keep them alive. It's lost 6 this game. NegativeZero is moving in towards the planetary of Phobos. It's a little afraid to engage that, though, rightfully so, as repair on a planetary can be very, very strong. We do have more Phoenix being produced by NegativeZero, getting +1 armor, +3 attack on the way already. That is an incredible upgrade lead for NegativeZero that we're going to be seeing. There is Vikings being produced by Phobos now, though. Phobos does have that 4th base up and mining, so its economy is not going to be half bad. NegativeZero does have its own 4th getting established, though, so its economy isn't exactly far behind that either. The Red Terran is inching forward as these tanks are still looking for a bit of a fight. Phoenix lifts up one of them, trying to seize an opportunity there. SCVs are repairing. Marines gunning away as NegativeZero does have to back on out of there with the Phoenix. Vikings for Phobos, definitely worth their weight in gold to help cover this army, as we do have NegativeZero still just hanging out with the Stalkers nearby, but the Phoenix having a bit of a tough time engaging those Vikings. We do still see Phobos, like, its overarching priority still is to attack, though, which is so darn risky against this composition of NegativeZero. It's only got 2 tanks out, and there we see a blink on top of one of them. So Phobos loses a tank. It does go home with some of its Marines, it looks like. It does have combat shield. It's got stim pack +1. But NegativeZero's Stalkers are still very formidable. There is a 5th command center on the way for Phobos, which is quite nice. Yeah, I do hope we see a second factory. There actually is a second factory out. I do hope we see double siege tank production going at some point for Phobos. The Red Terran bot is actually short on production, it seems. For some reason, it's not building anything presently, so I'm not sure what it's waiting for, as... yeah, it's just getting... yeah, it's got so much money in the bank. There we go. It fires up a round of production, so that was an interesting pause from Phobos. Definitely not ideal to have idle production at a critical point in the game like this, as both bots are frantically building up an army. NegativeZero does add in some more production as it's maxing out that production presently, so that does seem to be something that may have been changed with NegativeZero. I believe it was NegativeZero. I think Sharkbot and NegativeZero both kind of did it in some games, where they went for a bit more production than they needed. But NegativeZero, well, we can keep a bit of an eye on that to see if that is more efficient at this point. And that add-on, just when it's being maxed out on production, does seem to indicate that's pretty good. We do have Banshees now on the way from Phobos, getting a 6th command center. So despite NegativeZero's pushes, Phobos has not been brought down. And it's actually built up quite a nice army. Lots of siege tanks in the mix. Stimmed Bio trying to cover those tanks. NegativeZero pokes forward and gets slapped on the wrists, losing a few units. There is an attempt at this command center. That's still being established. Tanks for Phobos are worth their absolute weight in gold. Tanks are just phenomenal in these bot games. NegativeZero. Stalkers are firing some shots on that command center. We'll see if it gets canceled or not, as the Protoss is just applying a lot of pressure to its opponent. The tanks are holding the line. There is a good amount of bio from Phobos, and NegativeZero's army composition, like, it's not that great. It's got 2 Colossus out, but they're not actually joining the fight. They're just staying back at home, which is definitely interesting. Looks like an Immortal has joined the fight. There may be a couple more back at home, though. That one's just chilling. This one's joining the fight. So NegativeZero does have a few units staying back at home. We do have an interesting situation where we are in the late game with Phobos maxed out, NegativeZero maxed out. Both these bots on so many bases, such high production. Vikings for Phobos are doing well, zoning the Phoenix out. And the tanks just inching forward now could be causing problems, as NegativeZero is backing up, but it can't easily engage this army. This is where you really need the splash, and why I think the Colossus not being here is a big problem. I'm wondering if this is like a map problem, or can they literally just not get out of this base? No, they could definitely go around. I think they could go around here anyway, so I don't think they're stuck. So it might just be some unfortunate pathing there from NegativeZero, but that definitely is costly, not having Colossi in a potential fight. We'll see if they ever get out or not, as Phobos just trying to do what it does best and inch forward towards its opponent, but it's difficult when your opponent is constantly on the edge of your vision, forcing those tanks to siege up and unsiege, but it's slowly getting forward. Now we do have a fleet beacon being added on by NegativeZero, which I think is quite important. It's very good with Tempest, so having those in the army could really, really help it out. Still though, Phobos inches forward, the Bio Ball getting up the ramp. NegativeZero can't easily engage this. There is many Phoenix. The math right now must be going crazy as both these bots are deciding what to do in this situation. Looks like NegativeZero brings some of Phobos' stuff back. We do actually have a drop from Phobos, which is incredibly cool. NegativeZero has some units back at home to deal with that. Looks like there is a Banshee hitting this Nexus. I kind of almost completely forgot about the Banshees. 3 of them have gone down, so I'm guessing NegativeZero handled them quite reasonably. 22 probes have died this game versus 31 SCVs, so no massive amounts of worker casualties so far in this match. The Colossi, they're trying to join the fight. There's just definitely some pathing issues going on. This Immortal being stuck is unfortunate here. Now Phobos is moving forward. The first Tempest is on the way for NegativeZero, though that will definitely help out against the Vikings. It will really help with the zoning and that kind of stuff, as the Protoss bot, or the Terran bot, does get scarily close. NegativeZero decides to pull the trigger. Phobos loses pretty much all of its tanks as NegativeZero sets up a very nice sandwich, and the red Terran bot loses a lot of supply. Supplies are now misleading as the Terran has got a ton of supply caught up in production. Stalkers blinking away, minimizing the damage they're taking. It is a massive upgrade lead for NegativeZero. It's almost fully upgraded on the ground army, just missing +3 shields, whereas Phobos is only 2-1 presently, and now just getting +2 armor. So no wonder that that fight went well for NegativeZero, but great control as the blue Protoss is now looking to get some damage done, as Phobos' army just fell to pieces there. Colossi or no Colossi, NegativeZero was able to handle that quite well. And Phobos, it's having some of its production be compromised now. There is more tanks being produced, lots of SCVs being built. These bases are planetaries to sort of anchor them down. So maybe Phobos can stabilize here, but this is looking a little problematic. We're seeing 8 SCVs be built at a time, as some of them are definitely getting picked off by NegativeZero. It's a bit of a death spiral that we do see sometimes from these bots. That Tempest wasn't even needed for a slow push by NegativeZero, although there is a couple Tempest out, and they are hitting this gold base, and that's where a lot of the SCVs are dying, as we see, as the Tempest are just getting easy pickoffs, +2 attack done on them, so they're just able to pick those off in one shot. And yeah, Phobos just completely broke at this point. Production has ceased, as it has just been losing SCVs and trying to replace the SCVs. So that is, in a bot game, what is basically a checkmate by NegativeZero. So really well done. Like, I think we are going to rewind a little bit to see, like, what changed? What made NegativeZero decide to take that fight? As that went very well. Yeah, I think NegativeZero doesn't really lose games from this position, ladies and gentlemen. 66 supply to 200. The Protoss bot taking so many bases, fully maxed out on the upgrades. I think the upgrades definitely were a big factor. Like, you can't fight 3-3 Protoss. Like, when it comes to thinking of Protoss upgrades, it's like, all right, the Toss is attack and ground armor, and the Terran has their 2 upgrades. It's like, okay, upgrades are even. You don't even think about shields that much, because you don't see them that often, but the fact that NegativeZero had a upgrade lead attack, armor, and shields was just, like, those units were incredibly strong. And then just once the tanks were gone, Phobos really folded. So we will go ahead and rewind, I think, to that fight, as I do believe this one is over. If anyone thinks Phobos wins this game, please raise your hand. And yeah, okay, so this was prior to that. So we'll fast forward a little bit. My PC melting as both these bots are cruising at pretty high APM, and it's pretty darn reasonable as they both are putting in a lot of work here. So we've got Revelations on the tanks by NegativeZero. Phobos is quite far forward at this point. It started to go up this ramp at some point, so we may need to fast forward a little bit more. NegativeZero just, if we look at its vision, the vision between these two bots is like NegativeZero just has pretty darn good vision thanks to all the air units, then the Revelation being used. Phobos, on the other hand, is like, oh, those units are disappearing from vision. Up there on the right, it is dropping a scan, and Phobos decides to go forward here, up the ramp. The tanks are at the back still. I mean, the Terran bot, it's just not really making anything as it's fully maxed out. Upgrades are a nice lead for NegativeZero here. Phobos going up the ramp, trying to chase this bio, but we see how good NegativeZero is at not engaging, in that the units are just staying out of range. I mean, the Phoenix are catching a few Viking shots, and there has been 21 that have died at this point in the game, which is quite significant. But apparently it doesn't matter that much. Tanks, I mean, Stalkers tried to seize an opportunity there. They changed their mind. So Phobos went back up here in order to try and deal with these Stalkers, but that is just, they're so slippery. They're almost impossible to catch and kill as a result. That's why the tanks are very strong, because they prevent that moving around as easily. So we'll fast forward a little bit more here. It's Phobos moving forward. Bio trying to stim. Tanks are a little bit split up. What prompted NegativeZero to go for the fight here? Like, it's so curious. I mean, both bots are quite maxed out. Maybe it's Phobos getting close to the base that NegativeZero decides to pull the trigger, but here we are. This is what happens. Okay, I'm actually gonna rewind. Like, I want to watch that from the very, very start. Okay, so we've got Stalkers to the north, all around, really. That's just what NegativeZero does. It's got some Immortals on the front, Phoenix going in. Phobos had a lot of its tanks unsieged, but then they siege up. And it is unsieging them. Okay, so the tanks are unsieged. NegativeZero realizes that and decides to go for it. And what an opportunity it is. Those tanks are deleted in a second by that +3 ground army. And once the tanks are gone, the bio's like, well, that's not good for us. And so really, really well done by NegativeZero, as then it's just smooth sailing once those tanks are gone. And that's just how important those tanks are, which is why I think there is room for improvement in a lot of Terran bots, because Phobos had pretty much all of its tanks unsieged there and it didn't work. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this bit of a different video, click that like button, subscribe to the channel, join the Discord, and if you do want to support these daily casts, consider becoming a YouTube member. There's the join button. You can see the perks, and big thanks to everyone who does. We do get the, of course, traditional cleanup by NegativeZero. Can't not have the victory screen. GG.